Everybody loves weeping willow trees. They're so beautiful. You probably have childhood memories of a neighbor or a relative, maybe a grandparent that had a big, beautiful weeping willow tree in their yard, and you've always wanted one, but they're kind of expensive. Do you know one person that has a weeping willow tree who might let you come up and maybe just clip a tiny little switch off of it? Because if you do, you can make your own weeping willow tree, and we're going to show you another step in the process of how we're doing it. We started about, 20 days ago, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Come closer, honey. I'm going to take the phone from my beautiful bride. Now, you might remember if you've been following our channel, about 3 weeks ago, we came out here to prune our weeping willow tree. You can see the fresh cuts on the stem there. Oh, there it is, right there, and all the way up to stock, okay? Because if you want that perfect weeping willow tree at maturity, you want to make sure you prune it perfectly as it grows. So we want ours to grow, these top two forks, we want them to come up and just make like an umbrella of shade coverage and beauty. And so we're going to do that. And so we had to trim off these suckers growing up the roots, or up the main trunks. But now, here's what we did with them, okay? Honey, make sure they can see all this. Are you close enough? Look. 4:04, that's April 4, and we're going to show you, this is important in the time frame. Show my watch, 4:24, so it's been 20 days. Could you see the date, honey? Okay. So what we did is we cut those off, we cut them down to size of about 10 inches, and we've just had them soaking in water for 20 days. This is to root them so we can start brand new baby willow trees. Now I'm going to gently pull these up out of this jug and check this out. And make sure you get a close-up of this so the folks watching can see. Can you see the roots?
Yep.
Look at all those roots. In only 20 days, these stems, and as you can see, they look like sticks. Okay, so all you got to do is go to your friend that has a weeping willow tree, ask him, see, and look at that one. That's a perfect one right there. And I'm going to gently put these back in the water because we're going to work with these later. But what you do, when you make that clipping, that cutting, you cut at an angle. You can see on this one, we cut at like a slight angle. You see that, honey? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then you can make them different lengths. We're getting ready to make some really big ones, like 18 inches long, off of a different tree. That's another story. But once you made your clipping, you take all the leaves off except for maybe one or two at the top. Now, some people take them all off so that the stem uses its energy to produce roots and not leaves. But I always leave the top leaf on because that way I can tell if the cutting is still alive or not. Because if it's not going to root because it's not healthy enough, this will die and you know you've got a dud. Then you just simply soak it in water like this, a jug of water like I've shown you. And these started rooting, I think I checked them last week, these started rooting after about 2 weeks, but I wanted to make sure that the roots got very well established before I planted them. So then you just take a little pot, and we have hundreds of these, it's just a little potting plot, and I put very fine loose soil in here. Make sure your soil's clean. We have an excellent location to get soil down by a couple where our springs run together just before they feed into our pond. And there's some fallen timber down there that's been decaying over years. So this is very rich soil. You just dig a hole. You want to stick this down in there to cover up most of the roots, okay? Very delicately. You want to make sure you don't damage any of these roots while you're doing this. And then you simply bury it just like you're planting, because that's what you're doing. Now, a couple of the roots, they're obviously not going to go under the dirt. I could fill that up more, but it's not necessary. This is quite enough. That thing's buried about 6 inches, and the majority of the roots are in the soil. Now, these will probably die off, but that'll be fine because the ones under the soil are going to be just fine. They'll live. Now with this is the beginning of a very well-established weeping willow tree. We'll take very good care of this, and we're going to do this with many others. We're actually going to plant a lot of these directly into the ground in a location on our property we're using as our little tree nursery. But this is how simple it is to make just one weeping willow tree. If you have access to a tree that you like, it's beautiful. If you're driving down the road and you see one, Stop off, go up and knock on the door of the property owner and say, you know, your tree is beautiful. I've done this. I've gotten weeping cherry cuttings this way. I would tell them, you have the most beautiful tree in your yard, one of the most beautiful trees I've ever seen. Could I just take one clipping so I can take it home and submerge it in water and root it and propagate it so I can have a tree that looks just like yours here in a few years? The people I've dealt with have always been so flattered they've said yes. I've never been told no. So if there's a beautiful weeping willow tree in your area, you want one just like it, this is how you do it. Keep this in a well-lit area. Make sure to give it plenty of water. Make sure it doesn't dry out in the summer, and it really is that simple. Here in a few years, this thing will be 5 or 6 feet tall, and it's going to be a beautiful addition to our farm. If you enjoyed this video, if you learned something from it, please subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more from Homesteading Off the Grid.